The impossible choice. The stars had never looked so cold to Commander Sarah Chen as she stood in the observation deck of Luna Station. Beyond the reinforced titanium glass windows, space itself seemed to burn with the lights of 10,000 alien warships. The Krelax Empire had arrived 3 days ago, their massive fleet emerging from hyperspace like a swarm of mechanical locusts. Each ship was the size of a city, bristling with weapons that could turn a planet to ash in minutes. "Commander, Earth Defense Command is requesting your immediate presence in the war room," Lieutenant Torres said behind her, his young voice barely steady. Sarah turned from the window, her reflection ghosting across the starfield. At 42, she had already earned a reputation as humanity's most brilliant military strategist, but no amount of tactical genius had prepared her for this moment. The war room buzzed with desperate activity. Holographic displays showed the alien formation surrounding Earth like a three-dimensional cage. Admiral Rodriguez, his weathered face grim with exhaustion, looked up as Sarah entered. "Commander Chen, thank God you're here. We need options, and we need them now." Sarah studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The Krelax fleet maintained perfect formation, each ship positioned with mathematical precision. No gaps, no weaknesses in their positioning. It was beautiful in its terrifying efficiency. "What do our sensors tell us about their communication systems?" she asked. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the station's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward with a tablet in her hands. "That's the strangest part, Commander. They're not using radio waves, laser communications, or any electromagnetic spectrum we recognize. Our quantum physicists believe they're using some form of instantaneous neural networking." Neural networking. Sarah's eyebrows. "Think about it," Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength as the plan crystallized. "A hive mind has never encountered true individual consciousness. They've conquered worlds populated by hive species like themselves. But humans think differently. We have billions of separate minds, each one unique. What happens when you introduce that concept into a collective consciousness?" Dr. Warren caught on first, her eyes widening. "Cognitive dissonance on a massive scale. Their entire social structure is based on unity of thought. Individual consciousness would be like a virus in their system." "Exactly," Sarah said. "We don't destroy them. We free them." Admiral Rodriguez shook his head. Even if this insane plan could work, someone would have to survive long enough inside their network to plant these ideas. The quantum interface would fry a human brain in minutes. "Not if that human brain was augmented," Sarah said, turning to face the room. "I've been following the classified research on quantum consciousness expansion. There are theoretical ways to temporarily enhance human neural capacity using controlled quantum fields." "Theoretical being the key word," Dr. Warren protested. "And even if it worked, you'd be going in alone against 10,000 ships. The odds are impossible." Sarah smiled grimly. Impossible odds are humanity's specialty. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of frantic preparation. Sarah underwent emergency neural modification surgery, having microscopic quantum field generators implanted directly into her brain tissue. The pain was excruciating, like lightning striking inside her skull, but she endured it. Earth's survival depended on her ability to interface with the alien network. Meanwhile, Earth's best engineers worked to modify a single-person stealth ship with the quantum transmission equipment needed for Sarah's mission. The ship, designated Prometheus II, would have to get close enough to the Krelax flagship for Sarah to establish neural contact. As the modifications neared completion, Sarah found herself back at the observation deck, staring out at the alien fleet. Lieutenant Torres approached hesitantly. "Commander, the entire crew wants you to know. We believe in you. Whatever happens out there, you're carrying all of humanity with you." Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. The weight of 7 billion lives pressed down on her shoulders. In a few hours, she would either save her species or die trying. There were no other options. Dr. Warren appeared beside her, holding a small device that looked like a metallic headband. This is the neural interface crown. Once you put it on and activate the quantum field, you'll have maybe 10 minutes before the neural strain becomes fatal. The connection to their network should be instantaneous. And if I can't plant the individualism concept in their collective consciousness in time, then we pray our automated defenses can take out a few more ships before the end, Dr. Warren said honestly. Admiral Rodriguez's voice crackled over the station's communication system. Commander Chen to Hangar Bay 7. Prometheus Aya is ready for launch. Sarah took one last look at Earth, hanging blue and beautiful in the void below. Somewhere down there, families were saying goodbye without knowing it. Children were playing in parks, unaware that alien weapons could end their games forever. Scientists were working on problems they might never solve. Artists were creating beauty that might never be seen. All of it depending on one human being and an impossible plan. The hangar bay was eerily quiet as Sarah suited up for the mission. The Prometheus Eye sat gleaming under the harsh lights, its hull modified with quantum transmission arrays that looked like metallic spider webs. Inside the ship's tiny cockpit, every surface was covered with controls and displays that would help her navigate the alien network once she made contact. Remember, Dr. Warren said as Sarah climbed into the ship, once you're inside their collective consciousness, don't fight their thoughts directly. That will only trigger their mental defenses. Instead, think about what makes humans unique. Our creativity, our capacity for change, our ability to see beauty in chaos. I understand, Sarah said, settling into the pilot's seat. The neural interface crown felt cold against her temples. If this works, and they stop attacking Earth, make sure humanity remembers that not all aliens are enemies. The Krelax aren't evil. They're just limited. Admiral Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system. Launch bay is clear. You have a green light for departure, Commander. And Sarah, thank you. Sarah's hands moved across the controls with practiced precision. The Prometheus Eye lifted smoothly from the hangar bay floor and glided toward the opening airlock. Behind her, Luna Station grew smaller until it was just another point of light against the stars. Ahead lay the Krelax fleet, a wall of alien ships that seemed to stretch across the entire galaxy. At the center of the formation, the flagship loomed like a metallic mountain, its hull covered with the same crystalline structures that grew from the aliens' heads. That was her target. Sarah engaged the stealth systems, and the Prometheus Eye vanished from most forms of detection. The ship was small enough and quiet enough to slip between the alien vessels unnoticed, but she would only get one chance. If the Krelax detected her before she could establish neural contact, the mission would end in a brief flash of vaporized metal. As she navigated between the massive warships, Sarah activated her ship's sensors to study the Krelax more closely. The aliens moved through their ships with perfect coordination, never colliding or getting in each other's way. It was like watching a single organism with thousands of bodies. 10 minutes to flagship intercept, she announced to her communication system, knowing Luna Station was monitoring her progress. Understood, Prometheus Eye, came Admiral Rodriguez's voice. Earth defense reports alien weapons are powering up. They're preparing for planetary bombardment. Whatever you're going to do, Sarah, do it fast. Sarah's heart hammered as she guided her ship toward the flagship's docking bay. The enormous opening was guarded by automated weapons, but the stealth systems held. The Prometheus Eye slipped inside like a ghost, finding an empty berth among rows of smaller Krelax vessels. She powered down the ship's engines and reached for the neural interface crown. Once she activated it, there would be no turning back. Either she would succeed in changing the Krelax from within, or she would die trying. Sarah placed the crown on her head and closed her eyes. For humanity, she whispered, and pressed the activation button. The quantum field erupted inside her brain like a supernova. The mind war. Pain beyond description tore through Sarah's consciousness as the quantum interface crown activated. Her brain felt like it was being pulled apart and rebuilt simultaneously. every neuron screaming as it was forced to operate on levels no human mind was designed to handle. But beneath the agony, something incredible was happening. She could feel them. Millions of alien minds, all connected in a vast web of shared consciousness that stretched across the entire fleet. Their thoughts moved like rivers of liquid crystal, flowing together in perfect harmony. For the first time in her life, Sarah understood what it meant to think as one unified being. The sensation was beautiful and terrifying. The Krelax collective consciousness noticed her immediately. Sarah felt their attention turn toward her like a searchlight, analyzing this strange new presence in their network. She forced herself to remain calm as alien thoughts probed her mind, trying to understand what she was. Unknown neural pattern detected. The collective voice resonated through the quantum network. It wasn't spoken words but pure thought, transmitted directly from mind to mind. Biological origin confirmed. Local species designation, human. Sarah tried to respond the same way, thinking her words directly into the network. I am Commander Sarah Chen of Earth. I come seeking understanding between our species. Understanding is irrelevant, came the immediate response. Your world will be harvested. Your species will serve or be eliminated. This is the natural order. Through the network, Sarah could sense the collective's absolute certainty. To the Krelax, there was no moral ambiguity in their actions. They consumed worlds and enslaved populations because that was simply what stronger species did to weaker ones. It was as natural to them as breathing. But Sarah also sensed something else beneath their unified thoughts, a vast loneliness that the collective didn't even recognize. They had been one mind for so long that they had forgotten what it meant to discover something new, to be surprised, to grow as individuals. May I show you something? Sarah projected into the network, fighting against the neural strain that threatened to tear her consciousness apart. A different way of thinking. Your individual thoughts are chaos. The collective responded. Order must be maintained. Sarah smiled despite the pain. Chaos can be beautiful. Before the Krelax could react, Sarah opened her mind completely to the network. She didn't try to impose her thoughts on them. Instead, she simply let them experience what it felt like to be human. She shared memories of her childhood, playing in the rain and laughing with friends who thought differently than she did. She showed them the joy of learning something new, the satisfaction of solving a problem no one had ever solved before. The reaction was immediate and violent. The collective consciousness recoiled from her thoughts like they were poison, trying to purge her from their network. But Sarah held on, her augmented neural capacity allowing her to maintain the connection even as the Krelax mental defenses attacked her mind. Stop this disruption, the collective demanded. Your chaotic patterns threaten our unity. I'm not trying to destroy your unity. Sarah projected back, sharing more memories. She showed them human art, music created by billions of different minds working independently. She let them feel the love between family members who argued and disagreed, but still cared for each other. I'm trying to show you what you've lost. Through the network, Sarah could sense the Krelax fleet preparing to fire on Earth. Weapons that could shatter continents were charging, ready to end human civilization in minutes. She had to work faster. Drawing on her memories of humanity's greatest achievements, Sarah began to weave a new kind of thought pattern into the network. She showed the collective how human scientists work together while maintaining their individual perspectives, how their disagreements and different approaches led to breakthroughs that no single mind could achieve. See how they think differently about the same problem. She projected, sharing memories of scientific conferences where researchers debated passionately. Each perspective reveals something new. The chaos creates innovation. Some part of the collective consciousness began to waver. Sarah felt a tremor of uncertainty ripple through the network, the first crack in their absolute unity. One of the Krelax minds, just one among millions, began to wonder what it would be like to have an original thought. That single moment of individual curiosity spread through the network like wildfire. No, the collective voice thundered, but it was too late. The concept of individual thought had taken root, and the Krelak's minds began to fracture along lines they had never imagined. For the first time in their species' history, they began to think as separate beings. Sarah felt the network convulse as millions of alien minds suddenly experienced the terrifying and exhilarating freedom of independent thought. Some fought against it, desperately trying to re-establish their connection to the collective. Others embraced it, marveling at the sensation of having private thoughts that belonged to them alone. Through the chaos, Sarah sensed the weapons charging down. The Krelak's fleet's attack on Earth had been halted as their operators struggled with their newfound individuality. But the damage to their collective consciousness was spreading rapidly, threatening to tear their entire civilization apart. "You have destroyed us," came a single voice through the network, no longer the unified chorus of the collective, but one individual Krelak's mind speaking alone. "We are becoming scattered." "You're becoming free," Sarah replied, her own consciousness beginning to fray under the neural strain. The quantum interface was burning out her augmented brain cells one by one. She had minutes left, maybe less. But freedom doesn't mean isolation. Humans work together while remaining individuals. You can too. She shared one final set of memories: humanity's response to the Krelak's invasion. Not a hive mind moving in perfect unison, but billions of separate individuals choosing to work together. Scientists sharing research, soldiers volunteering for dangerous missions, ordinary people helping their neighbors. Unity born from choice rather than compulsion. "We can show you how," Sarah projected with her fading strength, "if you're willing to learn." The network fell silent as millions of newly individual Krelak's minds considered her words. Sarah could feel her consciousness dissolving as the neural interface finally overloaded, but she held on long enough to sense their decision. One by one, the alien minds began reaching out to each other, not as components of a collective, but as individuals choosing to connect. They were learning to cooperate while maintaining their newfound independence, creating something entirely new in their species' history. Through the observation ports of the Krelak's flagship, Sarah's failing vision caught sight of Earth hanging blue and beautiful in the void. The planet was safe. Her mission had succeeded in ways she had never imagined. As the quantum interface crown finally burned out, Sarah's consciousness returned to her own body with jarring suddenness. She was back in the cockpit of Prometheus II, blood trickling from her nose and ears. The neural strain had pushed her augmented brain to its absolute limits, but she was alive. Her communication system crackled to life. "Commander Chen, this is Luna Station. We're reading massive energy fluctuations throughout the Krelak's fleet. Their weapons have powered down, and Sarah, they're trying to communicate with us, using our radio frequencies." Sarah smiled weakly and activated her ship's transmitter. "Luna Station, this is Prometheus I. Mission accomplished. The Krelaks are no longer our enemies." As Sarah piloted her ship back toward Luna Station, she watched the alien fleet beginning to reorganize itself. Ships moved out of their perfect formation as individual Krelak's commanders made their own decisions about positioning. Some vessels began broadcasting on multiple frequencies, their crews apparently arguing among themselves for the first time in their species' history. It would take time for them to learn how to be individuals while still working together. There would be conflicts and confusion as they figured out their new way of existence. But Sarah had given them something precious: the ability to choose their own path. Earth's communication arrays came alive with messages from the Krelak's fleet. Thousands of individual voices, each one unique, each one eager to learn about the species that had shown them the gift of independent thought. The war was over before it had truly begun, ended not by weapons, but by the introduction of a simple human concept: the value of individual consciousness. As Prometheus II docked at Luna Station, Sarah was met by cheering crowds of technicians and officers. Admiral Rodriguez was there, tears streaming down his weathered face. Dr. Warren rushed forward with medical scanners, checking Sarah's vital signs and marveling at the fact that she had survived the neural interface. "Commander," Admiral Rodriguez said, his voice thick with emotion, You've just achieved something unprecedented in human history. You've ended a war by making our enemies into friends." Sarah nodded tiredly, the full weight of what had happened beginning to sink in. "Not friends yet," she corrected, "but they're willing to try. And that's more than we had this morning." In the days that followed, first contact protocols were established between humanity and the newly individualized Krelax. Cultural exchange programs began, with human teachers helping the aliens learn to navigate their newfound independence, while Krelax scientists shared technologies that would revolutionize human civilization. The process wasn't without its challenges. Some Krelax struggled with the isolation of individual thought and tried to recreate their old collective consciousness. Others embraced their independence so enthusiastically that they became difficult to work with. But gradually, both species learned to bridge the gap between their different ways of thinking. Sarah became Earth's first ambassador to the Krelax Empire, helping to guide the transformation of their society from a unified collective to a federation of independent worlds. The neural modifications she had undergone left her with a unique ability to understand both human and Krelax thought patterns, making her invaluable in diplomatic negotiations. Years later, when historians wrote about the moment that changed the course of galactic civilization, they would call it the Last Stand Protocol, humanity's final desperate gambit that turned certain destruction into unprecedented alliance. But Sarah always preferred to think of it as the First Contact Protocol, the moment when two species learned that differences in thinking weren't weaknesses to be eliminated, but strengths to be celebrated. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and now humanity would explore it not as conquerors, but as partners with the aliens who had once threatened to destroy them. It was, Sarah reflected, exactly the kind of impossible outcome that made being human such an adventure.